Today we're going to talk about relating fractions to decimals. We've been dealing a lot with fractions, and now we're just going to kind of relate them to the decimals. So a decimal is a number with one or more digits to the right of the decimal point. Now a decimal point is a symbol used to separate dollars and cents or ones and tenths in a decimal. So here we have a basic chart, a basic place value chart. We have thousands, hundreds, tens, ones. Then right here we have a decimal point. And then we have tenths and hundredths. So we're going back behind. Now, a lot of people see decimals written in terms of money. We write in terms of money a lot. But say I had $1 and 10 cents, I would write the $1 and then my decimal point, and then 1 tenths and 0 hundredths for $1.10. Okay. That's just, or as a decimal, this would be 1.10 or 1.10. So, and we're just going to kind of show these. Go. Okay, so this first one here, you notice I still have my chart up here to just kind of remind us. We have a model here. And in this model, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 sections. And of those 10 sections, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 shaded. So as a fraction, we would write this as our denominator would be 10 because we have 10 sections. And our numerator would be 7 because we have 7 that are shaded, or 7 x's. For our decimal over here, we would write this as our 7 is in the 10th spot. So in our place value chart up here, we don't have any whole numbers, so we'd have 0 point. And then in our tenths position, we would have our 7. So our decimal is going to be 0.7 for 7 tenths. On this next one, we have our place value chart up here at the top. Once again, reminding us, right here we have a hundreds chart, or we have 100 squares here. And of those 100 squares, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them marked. So our fraction in this case is going to be 5 out of, this time we have 100 different squares, so it's going to be 5 out of 100. So in this case, in our chart up top here, in our place value chart, we would want to put our 5 in the hundredths place. If we don't have anything in the tens place, then it would be a 0 in the tens place. We keep in our decimal point, and we have 0 ones, so we're going to put 0 ones there. So our decimal down below will be 0.05. And that is how we write a decimal here, our fraction and our decimal. On our next one here, we're going to be relating these to writing these fractions as decimals. Now, 2 tenths, we're going to always have 0 ones. So if we don't have any whole number next to any of these fractions, then we're going to have 0 ones. So we're going to have 0 points. And then we're looking at tens here. So because it's tens, we're only going to go to the tenths position. And we have 2 tenths, so it's 0.2. This second one here is 8 tenths. So 0 in the ones column, and then in the tenths column, we're going to have our 8, 0.8. On our next one, we have 5 tenths. So 0 in the ones column, and then our 5 in the tenths column. Then we have our 10 tenths. Now, 10 tenths is the same thing as 1 because our 0 would have to go in the tenths column. So we have our decimal point with our 0 in the tenths column and our 1 in the next column to the left. So it gives us 1.0 or 1. Over here we have our fraction is 3/100ths. So because we're doing 100ths now, there's no whole number, so we're going to do our 0 point. We don't have any tenths, but we have a 3 in the 100ths column, so it's going to be 0.03. Our 20 hundredths, that is going to be a 0 point. Now our 0 needs to be in the hundredths column. So 0 in the hundredths column, so our 2 ends up being in the tenths column to make 0.20 or 20 hundredths. Here we have 45 hundredths, so we're going to take a 0 period. And in our hundredths column is where our 5 is going to be. The last number right here, the last digit here, will always be in the hundredths column because that's what we're looking at here is hundredths. So our 5 goes in the hundredths column, and our 4 will end up going right before that to the left of it in the tenths column. So that gives us our 45. So 0.45. Now down here we have 100 100ths. Well, using the same theory, our 0 here has to go in the hundredths column. So we're going to take our 0 and we're going to place it in the hundredths column. And then we're going to move over. Oh, we have another 0 in the tenths column. And then we have our decimal and our 1 for one whole. 100 100ths is one whole. These next ones, we're going to convert decimals into fractions. So, our first one here is 0.1. Now that 0.1 is in the 1 is in the tenths column. So we're looking at it as tenths, and it is a 1, so 1/10. 0.2, once again the 2 is in the tenths column, so it's going to be 2 over 10. 0.3, 3 is in the tenths column, so it's going to be 3 over 10. 1.4, we have a whole number here, so we're going to do a whole number, and then 4 is in the tenths column, so we have 4/10. 1 and 4/10. So then we have 2.7, same thing, our 2 is our whole number, 7 over tenths, because 7 is in the tenths place. Our next one over here, we have 0.72. 0.72, we're going to have our 2 is in the hundredths place, so it's going to be out of 100, and it's going to be 72 out of 100. Our 4, once again, is in the hundredths place, so we know it's going to be out of 100, and it's going to be just our 4. Here we have a 12 with the 2 over in the hundredths place, so we're going to go 100. Our 2 is in the hundredths place, so we're going to have 12 100ths. Here we have a one whole number plus 84. The 4 being in the hundredths place tells us we're going to have it over 100, and it's going to be 84 100ths. And 2.02 is going to give us a whole number of 2, and The 2 is in the 100th spot, so 2 over 100. And that is how we relate fractions to our decimals.